1600 years ago, a man sat down to write the most honest book ever written about being human. Not a book of answers, a book of confessions. And on the very first page he wrote one sentence that has never stopped being true. You have made us for yourself, and our heart is restless until it rests in you. Forget the theology for a moment and feel the observation underneath it. Augustine looked at his whole life, every desire, every ambition, every love affair, every success, and he saw one pattern, a restlessness that nothing could switch off. You get the thing you wanted, and the wanting just moves. The relationship, the money, the recognition, each one goes quiet for a week, and then the hunger stands back up and looks around for the next thing. And here is his diagnosis, the one that made this a book people still read 17 centuries later. He said, every one of those desires is real, but you have been aiming them wrong. The ache is genuine. You have just been trying to fill an infinite space with finite things, pouring the ocean into a cup and wondering why the cup keeps emptying. He called it being scattered, torn into pieces among the many things you chase, when what you actually want is the one thing underneath all of them. And whether or not you share his faith, hold the question he's really asking. What are you actually restless for? Because Augustine spent 30 years certain it was the next pleasure, the next honor, and slowly, painfully, discovered he had misread his own heart the entire time. Let me tell you about the strangest confession in the book. Not a great crime, a teenager stealing pears. Augustine and his friends one night shook down a neighbor's pear tree and stole all the fruit, and here's the detail that haunted him for the rest of his life. They weren't hungry, the pears weren't even good. They threw them to the pigs. So he asks himself, why did I do it? And he cannot find a reason. Not hunger, not need, not gain. And that's exactly why he can't let it go. Because he realizes he stole the pears for the pears. He stole them for the stealing. He loved the transgression itself. He loved doing the thing precisely because it was forbidden. Look how honest that is. Everyone else writes memoirs explaining why their sins were understandable. I was hungry, I was wronged, I had no choice. Augustine goes looking for his excuse and finds an emptiness where the excuse should be. Just the naked pleasure of doing what he wasn't allowed to do. And then he admits something else. I would never have done it alone. It was the friends. It was someone saying, let's go, let's do it. And being ashamed not to be as shameless as the rest. You know this. The thing you did that you still can't fully explain. The line you crossed for no reason except that it was a line. The stupidity you'd never have committed by yourself, but the group was there and no felt like weakness. Augustine's whole point is that we don't even understand our own wrongdoing. We think we chase things we want. Sometimes we just love the fallen. Now the heart of it, the psychological discovery that makes this a book about you, whatever you believe. Augustine wanted to change his life. He knew exactly what he should do, and he could not do it for years. And he refused the easy explanations everyone around him offered. There was a popular idea in his day that inside every person are two souls, one good, one evil, fighting for control. And it let you off the hook completely. When you do wrong, that wasn't the real you. That was the evil soul. Augustine had believed it for 9 years. And then he threw it away because he saw it was a lie that protected him from himself. The truth he found was worse and far more real. It is not two souls. It is one will divided against itself. He put it in a chain that has never been improved on. From a twisted desire comes lust. Lust obeyed becomes habit, and habit not resisted becomes necessity. Link by link, you forge your own chain, and then you call it your prison. And he wrote the truest prayer about that trap ever recorded. Begging to be freed from the very thing he loved, he caught himself asking, grant me chastity, but not yet. There it is. The whole of human weakness in 5 words. Wanting to change, and quietly praying that the change be delayed because part of you is terrified you'll actually be heard. You have said your own version of, but not yet, about the drink, the habit, the person, the life you keep promising to fix tomorrow. Augustine just had the honesty to write it down. So how does a man who cannot change finally change? Augustine's answer is not a lecture, it's a scene, and it's one of the most famous moments in all of literature. He's in a garden in Milan, 31 years old, and he breaks. 12 years of delay, of tomorrow, tomorrow, all collapse at once, and he throws himself down under a fig tree and weeps, asking, how long? Why not now? Why not this very hour, an end to my ugliness? And in that state, wrecked, sobbing, at the absolute bottom, he hears a child's voice from over the wall, a kid, playing some game, singing the same words over and over. Pick up and read. Pick up and read. He stops. He can't remember any children's game with those words, and he takes it as something meant for him. He goes back to where he left a book of Paul's letters, opens it at random, and reads the first line his eyes land on, a line telling him to stop feeding his appetites and change his life. Instantly, it was as if a light of certainty flooded my heart, and every shadow of doubt vanished. Now, los questions that it was question. It related just to the question. But notice the structure, because it's universal. The breakthrough did not come while he was strong and in control. It came at the exact moment he finally stopped managing it, stopped negotiating, and broke completely. Sometimes the wall doesn't come down until you stop pushing on it and simply fall. The book doesn't end at the conversion. Augustine understood the deepest questions come after. In the second half, he turns to two of them, memory and time, and says things no one had ever quite said before. He wanders through his own memory and is stunned. These vast halls holding everything you've ever seen and felt, a space so enormous you cannot reach its end, and it is inside you. Men go out to marvel at mountains and oceans and stars, he wrote, and they pass by themselves without wonder. You are vaster than anything you could travel to see, and you barely visit. And then time. He asks the simplest question, what is time? Then admits, if no one asks me, I know. If someone asks me to explain it, I don't. The past isn't here anymore, the future isn't here yet, and the present vanishes the instant you try to hold it. His answer was revolutionary. Time is a stretching of the mind itself. The past is memory, the future is expectation, and a horizon so thin it's already gone. You are scattered across a life that mostly does not exist. And that word, scattered, is where the book comes home. Restless in the beginning, divided in the middle, scattered across time at the end. One man, in pieces, trying to become whole, and when he finally names what he'd been chasing, it comes out as the most beautiful line he ever wrote. Late have I loved you, he says, beauty so ancient and so new. You were within me the whole time, and I was outside, throwing myself at all the beautiful things you had made. You were with me. I was not with you. Whatever you believe he found, sit with what he describes. A man who ransacked the whole world for the thing closest to him all along. His warning, across 16 centuries, is simple. You can spend your life looking everywhere except the one place you never think to look, inside. Now,